Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 19 of the Canine Culture Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that a lot of people don't want to think about, and it's truly their worst nightmare, and that's having a lost dog. And so we're going to focus on an action plan for if your dog gets lost. So probably something you have not yet implemented, or maybe bits and pieces of it that you have implemented, but just really focusing on what we can do in advance in the worst case scenario that our dog does get out or gets loose. So just going to go through a few things here to kind of think about. The first topic is getting your pet microchipped. So I think this is truly the most important step, because if a person finds the dog, if it is animal control, wherever they take the dog, whether it's a shelter or a vet, the dog can be scanned very quickly for their microchip. And so fortunately, they can contact you as long as your information is updated. So what you have to think about here is, number one, getting your dog microchipped, which even cats can be microchipped. So this really applies for multiple pet scenarios. Making sure that you register that microchip and then keeping it up to date. So a big issue that you'll see is dogs end up in shelters and with chips that lead to nobody. It hasn't been updated. Someone moved, someone got a new phone number. So just making sure that if your pet is microchipped, just keeping that information up to date. Second part of this action plan is checking your fence and your windows. So just because you have a fenced-in yard, that doesn't mean that your dog can't get loose. So you could have a loose board, you could have a gap at the bottom of the fence, a number of things that can come up. So just really thinking about doing a perimeter check every now and again. It doesn't have to be often. Just making sure that your fence is indeed secure, and maybe your dog hasn't been digging a hole in a certain spot that they could eventually get out of. For people who have the wooden panel fences that are spaced out, getting like a netting to go across the bottom of it. There's quite a few options out there, pretty inexpensive as well, to make sure that your smaller dogs can't get through those gaps. Another option is wearing a particular type of collar when they go out, or putting a barrier on that collar so they cannot fit through the fence post if they are a smaller dog. I've seen people attach wooden spoons to collars just to keep their dog in. So just thinking about that. And then same thing with windows. Just making sure that not only are your windows secure, but if you were keeping your windows open in the house, making sure that your dogs cannot jump out those. Think about if you're leaving the house and the dog has free range, you've opened your window and say you have a screen. Just think about your dog could probably get through the screen if they wanted to. So just thinking about those things before you leave, shutting your windows or adding in some kind of preventative measure so they cannot take out the screen. Third thing to think about in your action plan is getting a GPS collar. So it doesn't have to specifically be a GPS collar. So, there's different types of subscriptions. There's one called Whistle Go Explore. You've also got the Apple AirTags, which they're now making collars for on places like Etsy. And I think I've even seen them on Amazon. But getting something like that, especially, if you are traveling a lot, or if you're hiking, or if you live in a van or an RV, or even if you take a vacation in a van or an RV, these GPS collars might be a lifesaver for your dog. So just thinking about getting those and making sure your dog's wearing them when applicable. So number 4 on this action plan is using the proper equipment. So think about if your dog's collar is too big and they can slip out of it. So maybe you're at a campsite and they're hooked up on a leash and they can slip out of that collar, or if you're just walking them down your street or maybe even an unknown area and they slip out of that collar. So just keeping in mind that you want to use specific collars and harnesses to make sure your dog is indeed secure, especially a harness. I think a harness is a little more secure for most dogs, and there's different types of harnesses that you can get to make sure that your dog is going to stay on leash. The fifth thing to think about is keeping photos of your pet regularly. So making sure you have up-to-date photos. You probably already take these and you don't think about the photos in this particular manner, but just being able to have that most recent photo and being able to post it on social media and having people take action accordingly. So they'll see your dog, know your dog, and they'll be able to find it and kind of help redirect the dog to you. The sixth thing on your action plan is thinking about social media. So getting on different apps like the Nextdoor app. That way, if your dog got loose, you could post very quickly, and that is a targeted audience to people in your area. Also getting on different Facebook pages. So Lost Dogs of your city or Lost Dogs of your county. So just trying to be on those pages and making sure you can quickly and readily access those if for some reason your dog did get out. Number 8 on the action plan, still hang posters and hand out flyers. So there will, of course, be people who are not on social media or not on those pages, but you do want to make sure that they have the information that your dog is missing. Here's what they look like. Here's your contact information. So just going back to the old school, putting the posters out and handing out flyers, doing that throughout your area and through some of the more trafficked areas in the neighborhood or in the surrounding area. That could be really helpful to helping you find your missing pet and including the pertinent details on there. So missing, if it's a case where you don't want the dog chased because they're going to run more, so do not chase, specifying maybe how old they are and if male or female, when they went missing, where they were last seen, and then your contact information. If there's anything else that you need to include on there, such as, needs medication, might be blind, things like that. Remember to include that on your missing animal poster as well. So I would love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any tips that you take for creating an action plan for a lost dog, maybe some protocols that you and your family have in place already, and the plan that you guys have and sticking to it. So if you have any of those, please feel free to comment on our social media or to also send an email to canineculturepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I look forward to doing the next episode with you. Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.